Hi everyone, hello, it's me, Catch, your BFF. Today I'm actually filming with natural lighting, so if you can see, it's like a different background, but that's because I'm like on my bed, literally, and normally I'm at my desk. Yeah, it's quite a sunny day, so I decided to just go nearer to the window to film, and so I'm hoping, like, obviously it looks okay. Today we're going to be talking about how to take better meeting notes or minutes at work. I think it's just interesting that a lot of times, especially when you are at the early stages of your career, you're meant to join meetings, some meetings at work, and you're going to be tasked with taking notes of that meeting or taking minutes. But no one ever teaches us how to do this, right? I went to university, I studied communication and media studies, and then did a master's in international development. And I don't ever recall a class or a lecture where it was like how to take effective meeting minutes, you know. So it's like we're going to uni, we're going to high school, we're doing all these things, but we don't have a class specifically for something that a lot of us will do once we enter the job market. Hopefully, if you watch this video, you're going to get a few tips on how to take better meeting notes and meeting minutes at work. I'm just going to give a disclaimer here that I'm calling it meeting notes, but technically what I have in mind are meeting minutes. And by the way, if you see me looking down, it's because I have my laptop here with me and I'm looking through my notes. But basically, meeting notes are basically just key points that you jot down during a meeting. There's no real structure to them, and it's often for your own memory, so you know the important details. There's no formal structure, there's no formal format, no specific note-taking techniques are needed. Meeting minutes usually take a formal note-taking format, and oftentimes they can be used as official documents by auditors or court proceedings, etc. They tend to have a set structure. And so normally, if you're taking meeting minutes, you need to write the date and time of the meeting, the name of the participants and attendees, topic discussed, key decisions, action items, etc. Personally, I believe that whatever meeting you're going into at work, you should take meeting minutes, right? Have it in mind that these are minutes and this can be used in court, this can be used in a future board decision. Don't take meeting notes as if they're for your eyes only. If you're tasked with taking notes or minutes at a meeting, apply structure and apply rigor, and that's what I'm going to help you learn in this video. I'm also aware that, for example, I just differentiated between meeting notes and meeting minutes, but in reality a lot of people don't know this difference, and that's why it's even more important to have structure to what you're doing, because someone can actually mean meeting minutes, but they'll tell you, oh, do you mind joining this meeting and taking meeting notes, so that language, I think, is getting quite blurred. And oftentimes, if you are in a formal organization, you're in a formal setting, the meeting is coming up, you've been selected to take notes for that meeting, just know that you are taking meeting minutes. That being said, I got my nails done. I know this is completely random, doesn't really relate to the video. I feel like it's a bit blurred because of like the sunshine on Instagram. Well, nail cam. Let's start going. Number 1, set up a meeting minutes template. If you are currently in a job or role where a lot of your responsibilities will be to take meeting minutes, there's no point turning up to every meeting with a blank document and starting from scratch. That's not really efficient. So it will be nice to take some time and set up a meeting minutes template, which should be an editable document. And anytime a meeting comes around, you create a copy of that document, and then you use that copy as the minute document for that meeting. And when another meeting comes up, you go back to your template, you take a copy, and you use that copy as for that meeting. Basically, you can find meeting templates online. Okay, I'm going to give you some things that should be on a meeting template, but you can find them online. Like, literally put free meeting minute templates or free meeting notes templates on Google, and you would find this sort of materials online. So please do check. At a minimum, a good template should contain the subject of the meeting, including the name of the project, the date and time the meeting was held, a list of attendees, specific meeting agenda items, including agenda items from previous meeting, from the previous meeting, the status of all items. So if there's action items, you should have an action items list, the status of those action items, and the key people assigned to each of those actions. You should also have apologies in there. So if someone can't make a meeting, they should, they would ideally tell you beforehand they won't be able to make the meeting. So you should fill in those apologies even before the meeting starts, so that when the meeting starts, everyone knows that this person couldn't make it. And also, if the document is ever referred to, people can know that when that meeting was taking place, so and so people send their apologies ahead of time and they couldn't make the meeting. You should also have names of any guests. So if it's an external meeting and people from outside your organization are coming in, put that in as well. So one of the things I listed here for the template is actually the list of attendees. So if you are in a room, meeting room, office room, whatever, and you don't know everyone's name in that meeting, right? It's very okay to have an attendance list and just pass that around. And so as people come in, just tell them, kindly put your name in the attendance list. If you feel like, that will be a bit too, let's say you don't like that, let's say you're dealing with senior people, you don't want to pass an attendance list round. What some people do sometimes is that they have name cards and they put name cards on each of the seats or each of the tables rather. And when people sit down, you tell them to write their names on the cards and make them into a name tent and just put it in front of them. That way you can see everyone's names. You can write their names down for the attendance list. And also if anyone's speaking, you can quickly look and see who's speaking. Nowadays, a lot of people work remotely. So working online, it's even easier to get an attendance list from there, because oftentimes things like Teams, Zoom, etc. will have a list of attendees shown while the call is going on. So that's number one. Set up a meeting template and try to always use that to, be more efficient in what you're doing. Number two, don't record what people are saying verbatim. If you find that during a meeting you're frantically taking notes, like you're constantly taking note of everything that's being said, and that's not what you were meant to do, like you're only meant to record the key points raised, because again, you're taking meeting minutes, you need to take some time and you need to take a second, take a breath and step back and realize, okay, what are the important things I really need to write? And I think this is where the delineation between meeting minutes and meeting notes come in. And if you don't already know which one of this you're meant to be taking, you need to clarify beforehand. Because if you're going into a workshop, you're doing interviews, that's different, because the notes from that meeting, would need to be very detailed because you're trying to gather everything they said. But if it's just like a governance meeting, project management meeting, etc., and you need to take the minutes, that's different. You don't need to write exactly what everyone's saying. So make sure that if you're going into a meeting and you need to capture the minutes, the key points said, you're not writing word for word what everyone said. The exact sentences people made, the exact paragraphs they stated. You just need to keep it to the key points. This should be a good moment in the video for me to clarify that for purposes of this video, I'm referring to, governance, check-in, project management type meetings, and not things like workshops or interviews or case studies where actually you're trying to get as much detail as possible. So that's a different type of meeting, but that's not what I'm talking about in this video. We're talking about normal meetings at work where people come together to update on status, to do board briefings, etc. Number three, consider outside readers. Now, if I join a meeting and it's not my responsibility to take meeting notes and minutes, when I'm taking my own personal notes for that meeting, I can be free with what I write in my notes. It's mine, right? I can use shorthand, symbols, abbreviations. I can even draw on my sheet. I can use a very careless handwriting because it's just for my eyes only. But when you've been assigned to take meeting minutes at work, you need to consider outside readers. You need to make sure that what you're writing is easy to follow, and that as a historical document, someone can, open this one day and say, okay, this was what was discussed. I understand everything here. So avoid using things like shorthand, symbols, abbreviations, careless handwriting, things like that. Make sure that if someone had no idea what that meeting was about and they read the document, they could at least aesthetically understand what was being referred to. Number four, start the meeting with an action review. So if there were actions taken at the last meeting, in this meeting, let's say this is, the next week, the next month, the next fortnight, whichever cadence you have going on, that should be the first thing you review. So you should say, okay, John, can you please give us an update on this? How is this going? Or you can say, actually, this is in progress by John. If you want to add any comments, do so. Oh, Sarah, this is pending as well, etc. So just have the list of the actions that were captured at the last meeting and their progress updates. If an action was completed, some people have different opinions about this. Some people say, if an action is completed, don't put it there again. So technically your action review should only be the list of pending actions. However, some people would like to have completed actions written there, but it doesn't have to be completed, actions completed over the course of the program. It can just be like, okay, this was an action last week, it's now being completed, so you're not going to see it in next week's meeting document. One thing I would say about the action review is that you should run through the actions, run through them with the owners before the meeting. So if something is pending, if something is at risk, etc., don't just put it in the action review or like put it in the actions list and then bring it up at the start of the meeting and then put the action owners on the spot. Make sure you get their inputs before the meeting and ask them, how is this action going? If they say it's in progress, you can tell them to give you a bit of action progress updates. That way during the meeting, if someone asks them, hi John, hi Sarah, what's going on with this, like why hasn't it been done, what's going on, they wouldn't be caught unawares because you reached out to them before the meeting asking about that. So they already know in their mind that this is something that might come up later, or this is something that they might need to defend at the upcoming meeting. So yeah, first thing you do in a meeting oftentimes, and I don't mean the first ever thing, because first thing could be introduction, greetings, setting meeting hygiene, etc. But I'm just saying, when the meeting actually does kick off for real, one of the first things you should do is to start with an action review. Number 5, know when it's best to just focus on listening. If you're confident that you know what parts need to be written, what parts don't need to be written, it would be good to learn more about the subject matter by just taking a step back and listening. If you're sure that you don't need to record certain parts of the meeting or a conversation, step back a bit and start listening to the content of the meeting. Maintain your concentration, listen to what's being said. Sometimes I've made that mistake where there was a part that came up in the meeting, maybe there's a dialogue going on, I'm pretty sure I don't need to write all that down. But because of that, my attention, slips, and then I start to check something else. Let's say it's a remote meeting, I could then start to check ASOS or something random like that. But by the time my attention's come back to the meeting, I feel like I don't know what's being talked about anymore, and I actually feel guilty because now I feel like I don't know what's being talked about anymore, and that's a shit feeling. So know when it's time to just focus on listening. One thing I failed to add, by the way, is that when you are entering a meeting, and you are kind of like junior in the organization and a senior person tells you to join a meeting, right? It's very okay to ask them, in what capacity would you like me to join this meeting? Would you like me to take notes and minutes that will be shared afterwards? Or do you just want me to listen in because you think it's good for me to be aware of the conversations going on this topic, right? Funnily enough, I never always knew this. Like, I remember having some issues a couple years ago, and it was around this, and I was speaking to one of my managers where I work, and she actually told me, by the way, it's completely okay to ask before, like if someone tells you to join a meeting, it's always okay to ask, do you want me to listen in, or are you expecting me to take minutes and notes? So always clarify before you get into a meeting, especially in the more junior years. I'm guessing that when you're a more senior person, no one would be asking you to take meeting minutes, but we're not there yet, so make sure you clarify. Which brings me to my next point, number 6, which is take time to prepare for the meeting before the meeting. If you're unprepared and you go into a meeting to take meetings or notes, etc., it will be reflected in your work because you don't understand what's being talked about, you don't understand the topic, you don't know what's going on, and it's going to show in the minutes and the notes you take. So make sure you prepare in time for the meeting. And this also includes meeting with the chairperson in advance. And I say chairperson, but it can be your manager or anyone who's actually leading or who's going to be hosting the meeting. It's all right to check with them and check with them at the start, and proactively ask them what they expect from you, basically. Because you are giving them a service, you are helping them out, you're taking meetings, you're taking notes, you're leaving them with the mind space to run the meeting. So just make sure you clarify anything you have with the person running the meeting. Number 7 is to sit next to the chairperson or manager. It's interesting when I saw this tip, because I tend to actually do the opposite. Like if I'm on a call and I'm meant to be taking minutes or notes, I'll go on mute and I'll turn off my camera. Or if I'm in the room, I'll literally just be out of sight. Or sometimes if there's a table of people, I'll actually be on a chair outside the table because I feel like I shouldn't be there. So it was interesting for me to read this tip online, that actually you should be sat next to the chairperson or manager when you're taking the meeting notes and minutes, because it'll be easy for you to ask them for clarifications, and you can see everyone in the room, you can hear everyone in the room. So try to be as physically close to them as possible if you're in the same room. Obviously if you're on a call, that's different because everyone's where they are, but if you're physically in the same place, try as much as possible to be close to the person who's running the meeting or hosting the meeting. Number 8, talk to attendees before the meeting. Let's say you don't really understand the subject matter, or you actually want to get more information. There's nothing wrong in setting up brief calls. They can be 15 minutes each with the attendees to get more of an understanding of their roles, their positions, what this project is about, what they've done so far, what their expectations are, etc. You're not going to have the same understanding on the subject matter as they do, but it will help your basic knowledge, and then you will be able to identify important details should they arise during the call, meeting, whatever. You get what I mean? So yeah, it will improve your understanding of the topic, and so it's highly advised that you talk to the attendees of the meeting before the meeting does happen. Number 9, if you are performing the meeting remotely, so let's say it's on a Teams call or a Zoom call, but basically if you're working remotely and you're in a video meeting, one helpful tip will be to share your screen while you're taking the notes. This can be helpful because if you miss anything, your teammates can point it out quickly and be like, oh, you just wrote this, but that's not right, it's this other thing. And so it's easier for you because it's a more collaborative process, and everyone benefits in the end because better notes and meetings are taken, or rather better notes and minutes are taken. 2 things to bear in mind though. Number 1, make sure when you're sharing your screen, you only share your note-taking window. Don't go and share the full screen, because if anything pops up, let's say like notifications, etc., or you close that particular window, then people will see your entire screen and disaster. So make sure you only share your note-taking window. The second thing as well is that I don't really think it's going to be very feasible to share your minutes and note-taking oftentimes, because normally there's a presentation for the meeting going on, and that's actually what's going to be being shared on screen. So yeah, oftentimes you probably won't be able to share your meeting notes, but let's just say a meeting comes along and actually there isn't any presentation, there isn't any PowerPoint that is taking up the screen share. Feel free to pop your meeting template onto the screen and write your minutes and notes as the meeting is going on, and then people can be able to suggest corrections to you based on what they see. Number 10, write in easily understandable paragraphs. Now, honestly, if you're going into a meeting and you're meant to take the minutes or notes to understand what people said, the main points, key activities, you shouldn't be writing massive paragraphs anyway. And remember, I've caveated that when I say meeting, I'm talking from like a kind of project management, governance, kind of check-in type situation. I'm not talking about things like interviews and workshops and case studies where you actually need to take a lot of notes. No, we're talking about normal meetings here. Don't use too much paragraphs, and if you have to write lots of text, don't just clump them into one huge ass thing that's like 13 lines. Break them into little sentences, make use of paragraphs, and if the meeting notes and minutes go past 1 page or anything like that, feel free as well to number the pages, add page numbering. That's a little thing some people might not think about. Check your after the meeting is done, proofread what you've written for clarity, grammatical issues, spelling, and before you send it out, consider if you want to attach an important document as well, because let's say two people during the meeting raise an important point and you write it down, but actually that point that was raised relates to a different document in the organization. It might be very useful that when you actually send out the meeting minutes and notes at the end of the meeting, you attach the document that we're referring to, because it will make everyone's life so much easier. Number 11, make sure you capture the overall purpose of the meeting. Every meeting that takes place is happening for a reason. People aren't doing that for fun. So make sure that at the start of the meeting minutes or notes, whatever templates you have, that there's a place where you've explicitly written down the purpose for that meeting. Number 12, write in the past tense. Because the meeting minutes are explaining what happened during the meeting, you should always write in past tense. However, personally, I don't think that's true. I think you can write in whatever tense you want. The important bit is that you keep it at the same tense. So if you're writing in present tense, then keep it present tense throughout the document, okay? So yes, some people have said write past tense, but I honestly don't think it's a big deal. Just make sure you keep it in the constant tense throughout the writing. And then number 13, once you finish the meeting minutes, meeting is done, etc., you're usually meant to send this out to the attendees. But before you do that, it's very important, it's imperative that you actually send it first to the chairperson or manager or whoever was actually hosting or leading that meeting, because they need to approve it and say, yes, I approve of this, I approve of the discussion points, I approve of the activities, the arguments, the actions. And yes, you can now send this out to everyone else. And by everyone else, I mean the people who attended the meetings. This is because, again, meeting minutes can be used in court. If anything comes up, this is an official document. We can say that, okay, we had a company meeting, a team meeting, this is what was discussed. It's almost like evidence. So it's very important that if there's anything that, let's say, you didn't get right, the person who hosted the meeting is able to see that and correct it before it goes out to other people. If the meeting is confidential, so are the minutes. If you are in a meeting that is confidential, it means that the minutes and the notes you take are confidential too. First and foremost, this implies that only the attendees and the eyes of the attendees of that meeting should really see the written outcome of it. And what can you do in this situation? Oftentimes, I would say, in my experience, people usually password protect the document. So they'll send it to the attendees of the meeting only, and they'll also password protect the document. Sometimes there can be a portal that is also, for confidential documents only, and maybe you can file the records there with your company, etc. But just understand before you go into a meeting, this is something that is super confidential, meaning no one outside the meeting should know about this. And a meeting could be extra confidential for a variety of reasons. There might be important information about an individual that they don't want the wider group to know of. There can be sensitive financial discussions. So just clarify before you go into the meeting if it's a confidential one or not. And if it's a confidential meeting, then make sure you find out the appropriate ways to share the meeting notes and minutes to the attendees afterwards, and then how to store the notes and minutes you've taken. Feel free to use technology to assist your minute taking. The first way you can do this is actually to just use a recording device. It can be on your phone, it can be on your laptop, but sometimes people find that when they record the meeting, it makes them feel more at ease, because it means that if they miss any points, they can listen to the meeting again in retrospect and then fill in the gaps. One thing I would say though is that you should be aware of your company's policies. If they have, a guideline that says don't record calls without prior permission, then you should follow that. But if they don't, if you've shared this with your manager or the meeting host, and you've said, oh, is it alright if I record this as well to guide my notes, and they've said okay, then go ahead. I'm going to admit that sometimes I've recorded calls. Actually, a lot of times I've recorded calls to assist my note taking, and shamefully to say, I haven't asked firsthand if it was okay. I've just done it anyway, and then after the meeting, once I've become confident that every point was covered, I then delete the recording of my device. Oftentimes would be actually the company laptop that I would record on, so usually it's fine anyway because it's just usually a screen record of the meeting. Another way is to use minutes transcribing technology. So there's actually some recording software that's specifically what they've been made for, to record minutes, help you transcribe, help you format, etc. Some examples I have written down here are Voicera, Reason 8, and that's Reason, like 13 Reasons Why, but with the number 8 at the end. So Voicera, Reason 8, and Otter.ai. So go check this out. I don't have any affiliate links or anything, not that it would matter if I did, but check them out, and download the app of your choice and assist yourself when you're taking notes and minutes for meetings. So number 16 relates to a point I've mentioned earlier, and that is that if any documents were referred to or used during the meeting, then make sure when you're sending out the meeting minutes and notes that you attach those documents as well, so that people can refer to them easily. And also, if there are people who missed that meeting, that way when they're reading the minutes or notes, they can be able to contextualize things better because they would have the associated documents handy. Number 17, keep your language fresh. So this is actually a general writing tip, but we'll mention it here. When you're writing notes, you can fall into the trap of using the same verbs or words all the time, but try to switch them up once in a while to keep the document fresh. So if you said suggested many times, so for example, this person suggested, that person suggested, change it, Sometimes instead of saying this person suggested, you can say this person proposed, that person recommended. Instead of saying this one talked about, you can say this one stated, this one debated. Number 18 is similar to that, and I've actually given this tip in many other videos. Actually, not many of the videos, but I've given this tip before, where it's like whenever you're writing, use active words and not passive words. So instead of saying it was decided by the board, say the board decided. Instead of saying the action was taken by John, say John took the action. An example that I can see here, instead of saying that the HR report was presented by Jane, you can say Jane presented the HR report. So put in the subject, or is it object? I don't actually know, but put in the actor, yes, in the front seat. The actor drives the sentence, not the what's being done. The actor drives the sentence as opposed to the action. Number 19, get the agenda. So before the meeting starts, make sure that you get the agenda from the meeting organizer. This can be the host, the leader of the meeting, or the executive sponsor, whoever is overseeing how that meeting plays out. But it's very important because it reduces confusion, it saves time, and you're going to have an accurate idea of the order in which items will be presented at the meeting. So when it's time to take notes and minutes, it's going to be much more easier. Sometimes actually, if you're the person taking the meeting minutes and notes, you might also be the one required to share the agenda. If that's the case, make sure you share the agenda well ahead of time, not just a few minutes before the meeting, but at least 24 hours or a day. And sometimes people require you to share it even days before the meeting, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Number 20, take and agree comfort breaks. So if this is going to be a long meeting, one that spans hours, chances are you would need to take a comfort break and go to the toilet, etc. Now, attendees generally can hop in and out as they like, but if you are the person taking the meeting minutes and notes, it's critical that you're always there. So if it's a long meeting, I know this sounds a bit annoying, but just speak with the meeting host, the team lead, organizer beforehand, and let them know that, okay, if this meeting is 3 to 6, please note that I will be taking 2 5-minute comfort breaks, one at 4 and one at 5:30. I don't know, but at least he's aware or she is aware that when you are stepping out of the room at that moment, just for a few minutes, you're taking a comfort break because you need to. And if your team lead, aka the meeting lead, host, whatever, if they know of this beforehand, it will also help, because when you step out, they'll be able to just take notes while you're gone for a while, and then you can then work with them after the meeting to combine what you gathered into a final document. Number 21, only record what actually happened at the meeting. Don't go including things that happened before the meeting or after the meeting, because those won't be meeting notes anymore. Those won't be meeting minutes. So make sure you don't include any additional or extra information that did not arise from the meeting. And number 22, behave ethically. It is fine to highlight, points of views and perspectives, etc., that you feel strongly about or you support, whatever, and make sure they're explicit. As far as that's actually what was discussed in the meeting, and someone said that, but don't go doing things like removing information or omitting information because you don't want that to be in the record, or because it's a point that you don't support, or it's a stand you don't support, so you want to remove it completely so it will not be actioned, or it will escape people's minds. That's not very right and upright. So yeah, number 21 is to record what happened in the meeting, nothing more. And number 22 would be to behave ethically, so don't go removing information that really should be there.